I'm Michelle Bamblin, and I've lived in the UAE for 5 years now. And at Zayed University, I'm teaching curatorial practices and art history. We're still on the old campus in Abu Dhabi. Our department decided that we were going to begin to have a curatorial practices minor, and I was asked to develop an exhibition. And it would have been best if it would be an exhibition on Emirati artists. And I was very interested in looking at the vernacular, the everyday pictures, to show the life of the Emirati people, taken by Emirati people for Emirati purposes. And I spoke to the students about the idea of, why don't we develop an exhibition, a photograph exhibition. The students immediately loved the idea. The students just brought in what they found and what their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins offered them. And slowly the process began. It took about at least a month and a half before students were coming to class with photographs. We put together captions where we wrote down to the best we could who took the photograph, who was in the photograph, where the photograph was taken, when it was taken, why, for what occasion it was taken. The exhibition will take place in Zayed University's new gallery, and it's really wonderful because part of the task is for the girls to design the installation. Some of these students are interior design students and graphic design students, so they're working together with the visual arts students who are working in the art pieces themselves. So we go to the gallery together. It's a large open space, and one of the main challenges is how to simultaneously show a number of videos, because part of what we're trying to do is create installations where the viewer can go into the space, see the old footage in a context that simulates the kind of experience that the people who made the video would have had. The initial inspiration for the project was the work of Susan Masalis. Susan Masalis is a very distinguished photojournalist. She's president of Magnum Photographs and a MacArthur Fellow. I thought this was a great inspiration for our students. Susan has so much experience and insight that I wanted to ask her to come and work with our students. And very fortunately, Abu Dhabi Music and Art Foundation generously contributed to support the workshop with Susan Masalis. And she came to Abu Dhabi and she worked with our students for 1 week. We began the workshop by making piles across the large studio of more than 10 tabletops. And we slowly put the photographs in categories. For example, just the everyday activities, cars and driving, education, entertainment, workplace. And we had about 11 such categories. And we wanted to take away for a moment a look at the personal attachment to the photographs and ask the students to look at them collectively without thinking about the specific stories that they're so attached to. And very quickly, with Susan standing there, and she'd say, which one do you think is most aesthetically alluring? They'd say, this one, and almost inevitably all the hands would go to the same photographs. At that point, the students worked with Susan, and the two of us sat down with the students one by one and asked them to tell the story, to go back to their families and ask about the photographs, to ask questions of the photographs, and they began to write narratives. We based the book on a title that we found on one of the students' father's albums, and this is Sheikh Sultan bin Zayed. And his photo album had a typed label, Lest We Forget. And so we decided to call our book Lest We Forget after that album, and to also employ a typewriter to type it out. And from that, the students decided that we'll use the typewriter to deliver our information. One of the best days was when we unveiled the typewriters, and the students realized they don't work because they had to change the ribbons. Well, I realized that because I had to find the ribbons, which was really difficult. And when we opened the boxes and tried to put in the ribbons, none of us knew how to do it. So the girls spent a lot of time experimenting, opening. The students themselves typed all of the stories by their own hand. So for the English stories, they typed in English. For the Arabic, they typed in Arabic on another typewriter. And that experience really put them in touch with the experience of their parents' generation. The painting for the incident of the photo booth has been a really exciting project for the students, because they're only parts of the image that are visible, and they imagine the other parts. And it looks a bit kitsch now, but the more that they paint, the more they really enjoy it. It's been a great appreciation for the kind of imagery and decoration of the past.
We came up with an idea of doing a photo booth, and we sort of remembered the old style of taking photographs. يوم تكونين في studio, they choose the background, and most of the time it would be backgrounds that like sort of had no sense. I think nothing UAE related. That's where the idea came from. There's a store right beside.
The division of work, fortunately, was very organic and natural. The girls gravitated to certain tasks, and in a lot of ways they collaborated together. So, for example, when we got to the photographs, one student would take the measurements, write it down, pass the photograph to the next student, who would in turn measure and write it down, and then we could compare the measurements to make sure that we are accurate. We also had the photography. Several students worked together with the copy stand, and we did a lot of experimenting. We took the copy stand into the darkroom and used lights. We took it outside, and it was in the daylight. We tried to photograph in our classroom, and we got different results each time. Poster design, and she came up with various renditions and versions, and we had critiques in class, and the students all gave their feedback.
I'm doing an installation, which is based on a photograph that one of the students gave us. This installation, we're doing a silhouette inspired by the artist Kara Walker. We're adding a silhouette of some ladies on the photo that student gave us.
Very interesting collaboration was between two sisters, Dana and Reem Nasser. Reem took the course 1 year ago, and she began creating a graphic novel where she illustrated the students at work. And Dana took over that work in this class, and she also began illustrating the students at work. So we have a whole year worth of student production. Another student made another album, similarly, showing the students at work, but she used a different technique where she used photography, and she prints on sheets from her mother's old handwritten notebook, and then she and her mother are stitching Arabic comments in bright colored threads on top. Her name is Mira. It's very interesting. Mira, for example, called her mother, and they discussed a photograph, and Mira said this story out loud to Shama, while Shama wrote it down word for word in Arabic, and simultaneously Nora was translating it into English, while Ralda was sketching the girls in this process.
I'm participating in Lest We Forget exhibition as being the designer. I'm designing the banner for the exhibition and also the brochure that we're going to distribute it for people. And I'm also making an installation, which is a briefcase that my mother kept it for more than 25 years to save the images that we have, the pictures that we have at home.
That was a wonderful collaboration, and at the same time, the whole thing was being documented by Ayah. We had a lot of fun with the process.
I like that.